This is the I Still Believe in Cleveland podcast. I am Ryan Sponsor.
This is not going to be the last one of these we get, right? So we're going to get another one next Sunday in Oakland, right? Yes, sir. Good job. Great job, guys. Thank you.
It's on to Oakland for the Cleveland Browns with a feeling they have not felt in quite some time, and that is the high following a win. This feeling Hugh Jackson has only felt once in the regular season during his time spent with the Browns, but a feeling that will be expected many times moving forward.
Listen, man, I love each and every one of you. As I've always told you, I'm proud of you. I want us to have this feeling a lot more, okay? Because this is what it's all about. It's about winning.
The spark that flipped the outcome from the same old Browns to a free beer drinking fan base was expectedly named the starting quarterback on Monday.
I informed the group this morning that we're going to start Baker Mayfield and that Tyrod will be the backup if healthy. Obviously, he's still in the concussion protocol as far as I know. And if he's not able to go, it'll be Drew Stanton.
Baker will get his first official NFL start this Sunday at 4:05 Eastern against the Oakland Raiders, who have started the season with 3 straight losses, including a 28-20 loss last Sunday to the Dolphins. There's a lot of doom and gloom following the Raiders and new head coach John Gruden, especially after their unpopular in the short-term move to trade Khalil Mack to the Bears. The Raiders are likely much better than their 0-3 record describes. In Week 1, they got blown out by the red-hot Super Bowl contending Rams. In Week 2, they only lost by 1 to the Broncos, and that's after blowing a 9-point lead in the fourth quarter. The Raiders let another one slip through their fingers against the Dolphins this past week, initiated by a missed opportunity to take a 14-0 lead in the first quarter.
4th down and 1. Keith Smith, is in as a fullback. And it's Smith, the ball carrier, and they stop him.
So that's 7 points the Raiders missed out on. Here's another blown opportunity with great field position and 2 minutes left in the first.
Play action, Carr rolls to the right, under pressure, steps up. Going deep again, intercepted, back at the 5-yard line.
Amari Cooper was triple covered. They had a bracket coverage, they had a safety over the top. Derek should have never thrown this ball.
Derek Carr had one more chance to swing the game in the Raiders' favor late in the fourth on the Dolphins' 13, but it was just one more blown opportunity on the day.
Carr wants this first down call by Coach Gruden from the gun. Look out! Throws it as he's hit, end zone, intercepted.
The Raiders will still be the favorite this Sunday against the Browns, especially given the opportunity to travel back home and play in front of the Black Hole, a feat that Baker Mayfield isn't taking lightly.
It's kind of your back's against the wall. It's just your team, just the team that you bring, you travel with, and so it's always exciting with that. But then you add in the perspective of the Black Hole. It's a hostile environment. You want to see how your team's going to react. You want to see how you battle adversity, how you take on the challenge. So I'm very excited about this opportunity.
That isn't the only challenge Baker will face, as he is no longer the surprise arm out of the bullpen and will be the focus of the Raiders' defensive strategy.
They can game plan for me, but we got other skilled guys. We got guys that are doing their job very well right now. And like I said, my job is to get the ball in their hands. So I'm not going to be the one to run around and create all the plays. I'm just going to do my job and let them do the work.
The Raiders won't only be focused on how to defend Mayfield, but how to fix their special teams issues as well.
By far the worst starting position in football. I think we had numerous penalties on special teams, and it's a credit to our offense really for moving the ball out of negative territory. But we have to get more out of our return game, and we have to minimize the penalties. Our kicker, Mike Nugent, although he kicked field goals very well, has injured his hip. We're concerned about his status for this week.
The injury to former Buckeye Mike Nugent forced Oakland into signing undrafted free agent rookie Matthew McCrane. The Browns have had their own issues with kicking, but Greg Joseph stepped up in his first ever NFL regular season game against the Jets, hitting 2 nerve-wracking field goals. Joseph will have the experience advantage going up against McCrane, but will potentially need to kick off that horrible baseball infield in Oakland. The Browns have the momentum coming off a rocking Thursday night win, and Baker Mayfield raising up the town around him, showing that the Browns have a cast of playmakers with Landry, Callaway, Hyde, Njoku, and Hollywood Higgins all showing up under the bright lights. The Browns have the opportunity to punish the Raiders' ownership for ripping a team away from a passionate fan base in Oakland for a more lucrative setup in Las Vegas. But most importantly, Browns fans once again have hope that our quarterback will be dynamic, the defense suffocating, playmakers will emerge, and the Browns believe that they will win on every single Sunday. So the phrase, "I still believe in Cleveland," originated from a t-shirt that a few of my friends developed all the way back in 2004 for a website called torturedtown.com. Cleveland was obviously the most tortured town at that time, without a major sports championship since 1964, and Eric Saunier and Drew Swallen were two of my top commiserators and contributors to Tortured Town, and they are back in this rebooted version of the podcast to talk sports. We'll start with Drew and a topic that many Browns fans are interested in, and that's fantasy football.
Thank you, Ryan. It's a pleasure to be on the I Still Believe in Cleveland podcast. We're going to be trying out a new weekly segment where we take a look at the fantasy football waiver wire just to see if there's anybody out there that probably shouldn't be. We'll go through all the positions. We'll try to come up with some options for you. And for those of you looking for some help on your fantasy squads, we'll try to give you some options. And we do have some interesting ones for this week. So we're going to begin at the quarterback position. And we're going to start with the guy every Cleveland fan should know and love, and that's our guy, Baker Mayfield. I have been as pessimistic as anybody on this Cleveland Browns fantasy prospects, and that goes back for this entire decade, basically. The quarterback play has been terrible. The talent at wide receiver outside of Josh Gordon hasn't been good, but I think all that changed on Thursday night when this young man walked onto that field. If he's available in your league, you got to pick him up. There are some really bad options at quarterback. Andrew Luck, Carson Wentz. These guys still look like they're hurt, and there's a bunch of bad options out there. Even Tom Brady had a bad week, right? So if you're looking for help at quarterback, if you're streaming the position, which you probably ought to be, this needs to be your number one pickup for this week. He gets a very average Oakland defense with 10 days to prepare, and I think you're going to see just the next breakout game for the next star of this league. So Baker Mayfield definitely needs to be your number one choice if you're looking for quarterback help. It's a different era, Browns fans. This guy is legit. He's everything we've wanted from this position and more. Pick him up for your fantasy squad. It'll be fun to watch him and to root for him. The next position we're going to talk about is wide receiver, and there are two very good options that are probably available right now, although I don't know if this is going to be much of a surprise because Tyler Boyd was electric. He's my number one target for wide receiver this week. He's the wide receiver from the Bengals, and he's what that squad has needed opposite A.J. Green for a very long time. A.J. Green might be hurt. And in the game last week, or this week, I guess, he had 7 targets. He had 132 yards. He had a score. He was good week 2. And this guy needs to be probably starting for most teams. He is what that team has needed. And even if A.J. Green comes back, he still deserves probably your flex play this week. The second choice is Calvin Ridley. He's the rookie from Atlanta. He's owned in 43% of Yahoo leagues. He's coming off a monster week, 3 touchdowns, 146 yards. He brings a vertical element, and he is what that team has needed opposite their star in Julio Jones. So 2 pretty good passing offenses, and you're probably going to want some exposure to them. And if you can get that with Boyd or Ridley, and they're probably out there on your waiver wire. For the running back position, this is a tough position. I mean, there's not a whole lot out there, but there are 2 people that you can probably play as your RB2 with at least some confidence. The first is Javorius Allen. He's only owned in 26% of leagues. He's the running back from Baltimore. And it's a rare combination, this guy. He is the receiving back, the third down back, but he also gets most of the goal line carries. It's not something that we've really seen a whole lot, but he's good in PPR. He vultures touchdowns, and he's on the field about 50% of the time. I think Alex Collins is a much better player. And at some point, I think Harbaugh will realize that too. But for the time being, Put Javorius Allen in your lineup if you're looking for an RB2. You can do worse. The other option is Chris Ivery. He's only owned in 6% of Yahoo leagues. This guy's probably going to be a pretty high waiver wire as well with his recent game. He got 23 touches, 20 carries, 3 receptions, 126 yards, and he did it against a pretty good defense in Minnesota. He gets a bad Green Bay squad next. I mean, Chris Ivery is what he is at this point. He's a 29-year-old running back, but you probably only need him for a couple weeks, and this is as good a time as any to get him in there until LaShawn McCoy comes back. All right, the next position is tight end. This is a tough position in fantasy football. Unless you have one of the top 3 guys, Ertz, Kelsey, or Gronk, there's not much out there. There really isn't. The guy I'm going to give you is only owned in 2% of Yahoo leagues. It's Dallas Goedert, the tight end from Philadelphia. And lastly, I'm going to give you a defense. It's the Cleveland Browns. This defense is legit. This team has 11 takeaways, and they have a very average Oakland team up next. They have some talent on offense, Marshawn Lynch, but this defense is absolutely legitimate. It is not the defense that we all know and remember as Cleveland fans. They take the ball away. They have probably, if not the best pass rusher in the league, certainly top 3 in Myles Garrett. And they have a secondary for the first time in 10 years. They have a secondary that can cover and they can take it away. So they're probably available, and you should try to pick them up. They have a good matchup this week, and it might be worth storing. And lastly, Spotty, if you'll allow me, I have 2 sort of lottery ticket rookies. These are both wide receivers. One is Christian Kirk from Arizona. He had 8 targets for 90 yards. Josh Rosen is probably going to replace Sam Bradford. So he's a lottery ticket, sort of a stash that you can keep to see if he's legit. And the other is Antonio Callaway. He's owned in 43% of Yahoo leagues, so he might not be available. But if he is, I think you're going to want some exposure to this new Cleveland Browns offense, and you can get it via Callaway. Again, he's a rookie. There's going to be boom and bust weeks, but definitely somebody to consider if he's out there. So that's your plays for this week. Best of luck, everyone. We'll talk again next week.
Eric Saunier was the other main contributor to Tortured Town. He joins us now to talk Browns defense. Eric, thanks for joining. So where does Myles Garrett stand amongst the elite defenders in the NFL?
Yeah, I definitely would put Myles Garrett as one of the top 5 defensive linemen in the NFL. I mean, you look at Von Miller, Khalil Mack, Aaron Donald, to name a few. But what Myles does is he forces so much action and so much attention to other guys that they're able to contribute to the team so much easier than Myles not being there. 2 guys I can think of are Jannard Avery and Larry Ogunjobi, who are really taking advantage of Myles' presence and the fact that these guys are not being double-teamed as a result.
Another surprise, not a surprise, has been the former Buckeye Denzel Ward at cornerback. How is he comparing to other defenders from last year's draft?
Well, it's early, but as of now, Denzel Ward is looking great as a rookie. He has 17 tackles, 2 interceptions, a forced fumble, and a recovery. Now, the guy he's going to be compared to most is Bradley Chubb, who is the guy who many had felt that he should have been drafted ahead of Myles and with the 4th overall selection last April. Through 3 games, Bradley has 8 tackles and 1.5 sacks without a forced fumble or interception. Roquan Smith has 14 tackles and 1 sack with no turnovers forced. And Minkah Fitzpatrick, another defensive back, has 19 tackles and a pass defended. So if you look at all these 4 guys, Denzel's clearly outplaying all other 3. Minkah slightly with 2 more tackles, however, has not been into the category of forcing turnovers yet.
Yeah, I think Denzel has been a pleasant surprise, a little shocking on draft night and scary after the Browns' experience with Justin Gilbert. So what should we expect from the Browns defense moving forward after another great performance against the Jets?
Well, coming off a game against a rookie quarterback, you got to believe it's going to be getting harder back to the way it was in weeks 1 and 2 against Ben Roethlisberger and Drew Brees. Looking at the schedule, the Browns face Derek Carr this Sunday and Joe Flacco the following Sunday, so it's safe to say that it's not going to be an easy task for the defense. But what I do like is what Greg Williams is doing and how he is getting many guys involved. That's on all three levels, whether it's the defensive line, the linebackers, or the secondary. He's got these dynamic blitzes where you can see rushes coming inside or outside using different personnel and different packages.
So what's the injury situation looking like for the defense against the Raiders on Sunday? And what do you think some of the main challenges will be as the Browns travel out west?
For this week's game, Emmanuel Ogbah, Christian Kirksey, and Demarius Randall are all questionable. However, Christian Kirksey has been telling reporters that he will be playing this week. I still think the Browns can win with a couple guys being out, but if we have this defense at full strength, who knows what could happen, and it's going to be a long day for Derek Carr. So that being said, I like our chances this week, and back to you, Ryan.
That's a wrap for episode 1 of season 2 for the I Still Believe in Cleveland podcast. I want to thank both Eric and Drew for joining the show. You can follow Eric on Twitter at esaunier, that's ESAUNIER, and Drew on Twitter at dswalls11, that's DSWALES and number 11. Thanks to the Cleveland Browns and Oakland Raiders YouTube channels for interview audio, and the Oakland Raiders Radio Network and Brent Musburger for Oakland's game audio. We'll be back next week to talk about the Cleveland Indians and their prospective run in the playoffs. But until next time, go Cavs, go Tribe, and here we go Brownies.